Hello everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of the Let's Learn Awake guitar series. Today we're going to be looking at Caught in a Web. Every single note, every single time change, every single chord progression, and a musical analysis to boot. We're also going to figure out why it's called Caught in a Web. Could it be because of Kevin Moore's spider-like keyboard leads? Could it be James LaBrie's vocal stylings that appear to indicate that we are indeed caught in a web? Or is it the sheer amount of spider-like chromatic exercises that John Petrucci employs using his 7-string guitar? That's right, 7 strings instead of 6. We got a 7-legged spider instead of a 6-legged spider, if you know what I'm saying. Anyway, we're going to find out why it's called Caught in the Web. We're going to figure out how to play every note in Caught in the Web. So stick around to find out how good this is going to get. So now that we have our 7-string in hand, let's get into that first Mammoth guitar riff that John Petrucci plays in the introduction. The intro riff starts off by ping-ponging between the open B string and a few different power chords. The progression goes like this: C sharp, C sharp, to E, C sharp, to D. So all taken into consideration, we have the 1 chord, the flat 3 chord, and the flat 2 chord as our fundamental basis. Now rhythmically, we're just hitting with some hammer-ons, 16th note rhythms. 1E and a 2E and a, 1E and a 2E and a. Just keep repeating that, and that's basically what we have. And we're also in the time signature of 3/4. 1 and a 2 and a 3, 1E and a 2E and a ba-bam. So just like the last video, we're going to get into the keyboard parts as well. Here's the first lead that Kevin Moore plays on top of that riff we just learned. So it sounds pretty cool, huh? Sounds like we're lost in the middle of India. Very Eastern inspired, I have to say. And he's also playing as if he's trying to mix in with those heavy guitars, which, well, is obviously the right move to make, but he really takes it to the next level with his tone and how it almost sounds like a guitar part rather than a keyboard part. Maybe that's why he hated being in the band so much. I don't know. Now the keyboard part is actually playing on a C-sharp Mixolydian scale, okay? So the Mixolydian scale is a major scale with a flatted 7th, alright? And we get this kind of sound with it. Right, you hear that flat 7? So for the lick, we have these notes. 3, 1, 2, 1, flat 7, 6, 5. Major 3rd, 1, 4, 3, 2, flat 7, 6, 5, 5, 4, major 3rd. So we are resolving into the major 3rd. Now the cool part about this is that the two parts kind of clash, because Kevin Moore is playing the natural 2nd on the top, but John Petrucci is playing the flat 2nd on the bottom. What also is happening is Kevin Moore is playing the major 3rd, the natural 3rd on the top, and John Petrucci is playing the flat 3rd on the bottom. I'm starting to see a pattern with this Awake album here, and I don't think I like it very much. Moving into the first verse, we're greeted with a relatively simple riff that just goes from the flat 7, 1, and the flat 2. And everybody in the band is doing this in unison, so really reinforcing the idea. So it hits like this: hammer into the 2nd fret power chord on the low B, and E, and E. And then after you do that 4 4 times, and this is when the words start, by the way, we're going to hit an open B type of idea. So flat 7, 1, and flat 2, but with B this time. So we're modulating temporarily. So we have to hit those perfect fourths on the bottom in order to get that sound. So you have the open E and A strings, which if you didn't have a 7 string would kind of sound silly. And then we go to the 2nd fret of those same 2 strings, then to the 3rd, and then with the same rhythm in between. And then we come back to the C sharp. Pretty basic so far. Now, we hit the intro one more time, but we only play the 2nd half. And then we hit another verse that has a slightly different keyboard variation on the top. It's actually a synth melody, and it goes like this. Pretty haunting, honestly. I feel like Kevin Moore's got some demons that he has to deal with. Hopefully he dealt with them by leaving one of the greatest progressive rock bands in the world. We start on the perfect 5th of the C sharp. Okay, so everything in the first half is on the C sharp chord. So we're going 5, flat 6, 5, 4, 3, 4. Then we repeat. This time we hit the root, and then we lead right into the B. Okay, so this is great voice leading. We're just going a whole step down, but we're changing the key entirely. Root note, major 3rd, 4th, 5th, flat 7th, 5th. Alright, so we're hitting that flat 7 once again. So the flat 7 is going to be a big contributor in terms of the melodic content of this song. So the scale is very odd that Kevin Moore decides to use here. We have the bottom half of a major scale. And then once we hit the top half, we turn it into the minor scale. So it's the later half, the back half of the minor scale with the flat 6, flat 7, back to the 1. So really the scale would be like this. Very cool sounding. So far so good. 2 chords in the verse. C sharp major or C sharp 7 and B major or B7. Both chords with a flat 7 implication. Now let's check out what that keyboard synth part sounds like on top of the guitar riff. Following those 2 verses, we hit the first intricate section of the song, and it goes like this. We're starting on the 4th fret of the A string, we're pulling off to the 2nd, and then we're doing the same thing on the E string. Pull off, pick, pick, and then the open E string. But that's not the bottom yet. We got to go down to B, down to C sharp again. So we're going all down the C sharp minor pentatonic scale. Then on the way back up, you just climb E, F sharp, G, or 0, 2, 4. And then you do that pull off again. Now this time we jump right down to the C sharp and we go C sharp E, C sharp G. So we're hopping up a tritone. So pretty diminished sounding, bluesy sounding. That's also the word we could use. We come out of that with a pickup into the beginning once again. Do that again and then we have this. So we're continuing on as if we're in a normal C sharp minor pentatonic scale, right? Going like this. That all makes sense. But then we're ending it with a whole tone idea, where we actually go into a G and an F. So, right? So G, F, tritone down, C sharp B, G, F. Now that's a whole tone idea. A whole tone scale is when you have all whole steps. So that's the vibe that I'm getting from this. The whole tone scale kind of represents a feeling of not really knowing where you are or where you're going to. which can be used to your advantage. Or in this case, Dream Theater has used it to their advantage. They're using it to pivot into a completely new key, which starts off the chorus section, right? This pivots into a G chord, which starts off the new section. So if you're not sure what to do, when in doubt, try the whole tone scale. It'll either work well and in your favor, or it'll fail miserably, but it's worth a shot. Now, of course, Kevin Moore can't play along with this lick like a regular human being. He's hitting power chords as he's progressing through the line. So check this out. We have a C sharp, a B power chord, going to a G sharp and an F sharp, and then to an E. So he's harmonizing that note down on the bottom. That's the note right there. A C sharp. Okay, a C sharp and an E harmonized together. So the E is the minor third in the C sharp minor pentatonic scale. We continue on with this. C sharp, B to a G. So we're hitting that tritone resolution, or I don't know if you'd call it a resolution, but it's hitting the tritone with a full-blown power chord to give it a little bit of extra oomph. And then we're coming back into the progression. C sharp, B, G sharp, F sharp, little minor third harmony, and then he joins in for the last part with an octave above. All those notes are exactly the same as they were before. This section also follows a 7/4 macro rhythm, split up into a 4/4 measure and a 3/4 measure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Perfectly subdivided between a measure of 4 and a measure of 3. Coming into the chorus section, we're hitting in on a G major, but that's not necessarily the key we're in. We have a G, an E flat, which is the flat 6 chord, so we're actually dipping into G minor, a C, which is the 4 chord, and then a B flat, which is the flat 3 chord. Coming back around on the first part, we have major 1 again, flat 6 on the E flat, 5, and back to 4. So it actually ends on the 4 chord. So you might be asking, hey Mike, why are you saying G major? There's nothing that indicates a major or minor key here. We're just playing power chords. Well, in the keyboard and the vocal part, the major third is highlighted as the first note. So that's a dead giveaway. So we're not in G minor completely, right? We're in G minor for most of it, but not at the very beginning. The first chord is a G major chord, a major 1. So there's 4 different parts that comprises this chorus section instrumentally. So let's take a look at the lowest level, the bass. So the bass line follows the chord progression pretty much to a T. So we're starting off on the root note G, alright? So remember, it's a G major. However, we're not necessarily outlining the notes of a G major. We're going 2, flat 3, 4, down to the flat 6 chord. This is now on the E flat. Then to the minor 4, with that little lick going right to the B flat, and then just riding on it till we come back to the beginning. Same thing, to the E flat, D, to the C at the end there, and we hold it out for an extra count. Alright, so we got a measure of 5 there for the big slide. Alrighty, no more messing around. Let's get to what everybody came here for, the guitar part. So to outline this chord progression, we're starting on the 1 chord and we're hitting a G power chord right on the 3rd fret of the E string. accenting the open G on top of that, letting everything ring, so it gives it a little bit more space, a little more depth of field. Then we come down to the 4th fret of the B string, which would be an E flat, and we still hit the G string on the top. Now, the interesting thing about that open G is that it's now the major 3rd of the E flat chord. So now we really know that we're using a major chord there, right? It's pretty blatantly obvious. And then we hit down at the 1st fret of the B string with that real heavy C chord, and then to a B flat that sounds puny in comparison, with this little hammer-on riff and a pull-off. Sounds like you're about to play some Leonard Skinner for the boys down south. And that's the first half of the chorus. Now the second half just does this: up that power chord and the open string, hit the E flat again, same thing. Now we go down 1 fret to the 3rd fret of the B, and then down to the 1st. Now let's get into what Kevin Moore is playing on top of this. Now this appears to be a string patch, alright? A very bright string patch, an orchestral type of approach here. Beautiful melody, beautiful melody. This guy's got it all. He knows what he's doing. We're hitting the major 3rd on the top of the G chord, alright? And doing that, so we're going 3, 4, 5 in major, and then we're coming down to this. When it hits the E flat chord, we're on the 5th of the E flat chord, which actually becomes the minor 3rd of the G chord. So that's our minor mode mixture. And we're going like this: B flat, A, B flat. Now that is the 5th to the sharp 4th back to the 5th. That is indicative of the Lydian mode on that particular chord, so we're embracing modes in this chorus. Then we go up to E flat, which is the minor 3rd of the C minor chord. Then we hit a G, and then right on the chord change, we hit the major 3rd of the B flat. And then we come down this little melody line, stepwise, back to the major 3rd of the G. Now this time we just hang out, go down chromatically, that's on the D chord. All parallel 5ths. This guy would have gotten kicked out of music school. Maybe that's why he joined a rock band. Buried behind that heavy 7-string guitar, we have an acoustic part that outlines some of the chord tones. So it goes like this. So it follows the same exact chord structure, but it just uses a 6-string version of getting through those chords, and an arpeggiated 6-string version at that. So we start off by arpeggiating the G power chord with the open G on top, and then we go to the E flat, 6th fret, 5th fret, just this little shape. Pretty cool. And then we come down to this for the C. So we're always outlining those 5th fret tuning notes, right? Because that's the same. That's a G, and that's also a G on the open. So it gives you that unison note sound, as if there's 2 guitars playing at the same time. It's very cool. And then here we got a little hot cross buns section. I say hot cross buns because it includes the major 6th. That's the exact sound. Second half starts exactly the same. E flat. Now this is the interesting part. We're actually creating a D sus to outline, well, that low D chord. Alright, so we're actually placed on the 5th fret of the A and the D, and our pointer is going to stretch all the way to the 2nd fret of the G. That's a D sus 4. And then we actually don't resolve the 4th. We keep the tension going the entire time, because we're letting go of the 2nd fret, which is the 5th, down to the 4th again, and here you have another 4th. So it's like a super D sus 4 like you wouldn't believe. Then the last chord just outlines a C power chord. and then we stop just in time for that. So in my opinion, a perfectly constructed chorus, beautifully layered and orchestrated. We have two melodies going on the top, James LaBrie's vocal and Kevin Moore's symphonically laid out keyboard line. We have John Petrucci's heavy 7-string guitar with those open string accents in between to give it a little more depth. We have an acoustic guitar part behind that, following along with some nice plucked arpeggios to give it a little extra rhythm. And of course John Mayung playing just a textbook bass line following along with the chord progression to give it that added support. Thank you, John Mayung. Now let's hear all of those parts played at the same time so you can really get a good feel for what's happening. So coming out of the chorus, after being greeted with that, we play this riff. And then we come back into this. So kind of a quick little thing going on there. We're greeted with a 16th note version of the introduction sequence, okay? So this whole part is based on the same chords as the intro. The 1, the flat 3, which is the E, back to 1, and then the D as the flat 2. Now technically speaking, the only thing I have to say is make sure you're grabbing that last 16th note of the 4 count. Alright, so we have that very last note is crucial, and make sure it's nice and tight. But it happens really fast because remember, it's only 1/16th note, and it's the main accent of that riff. Other than the downbeat, that's the main accent. Right? And then we pop back into the intro for a variation. Now instead of going to the C sharp, we hit the D as the accent in between instead. You might also notice another subtle difference. We're not in 3/4 anymore. We're actually playing the riff in 4. So that's pretty cool. So we have an extra 2 beats to deal with over a macro scale of 2 measures. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, as the prolific artist Vanilla Ice once said, that itty bitty change, it's not the same. But in this case, it is the same. So we're living in a Vanilla Ice and Dream Theater paradox here. We can't figure out what philosophy is actually happening. That's the beauty of being caught in a web. So verse 3 and 4 add another layer of complexity to the operation. And I don't mean complex in the sense that it's hard to play, but complex from an analytical perspective. We're adding a counter melody in the guitar and keyboard, and the bass is actually playing a different riff, although outlining the exact same chord structure, which would be C sharp 7 and B7. So the chords remain the same, but the riff changes underneath, and there's a counter melody going on top. So let's check what the bass is doing for verse 3. So like I said, just a rhythmic variation of the same idea we had in the first 2 verses. Now let's check out what the guitar is doing. So now Petrucci is laying down the framework for what Kevin Moore is going to take on for, a lot more of the song. So we start like this. So we're starting on a perfect 4th on the 4th fret of the D and the A string. And then we're going to a regular power chord, okay, 4 and 6. So that equates to a C sharp power chord. So we're going from C sharp 4 to C sharp 5, and then we're adding the 9th on top, stacking the 5ths by adding the 8th fret of the G string on top of that. Then we're doing this, putting the octave on top, flat 7, flat 6 to 5. So we're adding pretty much everything from the 9th stepwise down all the way to the 5th, right? So 9, 1, flat 7, flat 6, 5, offering a very dramatic turn of events. Then we move to the B. We just move it down 2 frets. We're still doing the add 9, but here we skip the 1 and we go to the flat 7. And then immediately go into the riff. This time more normal though. We don't go to the flat 2 like we did in the last one. On top of that, Kevin Moore is just playing basically an octave version of what Petrucci is playing. So let's check out what those 3 parts sound like together for verse 3. Next we hit verse 4. The same idea continues for the bass, except it actually takes it down an octave and plays it a little more normally. And then the guitar comes and joins the bass in playing that riff. So the guitar is playing this. So the same 16th note variation earlier that is also based on the even earlier chord progression, right? You got the C sharp, C sharp, and then eventually we go to the B. All while Kevin Moore is playing that other counter melody on the top with a slight variation, but you could just listen for it right here. Now chorus 2 is exactly the same as chorus 1. However, there's a slight change in how it enters the chorus this time. So let's take a look at how it pivots beautifully into the key of G, or G minor with the mode mixture. We're going out of this riff. That is a half-step resolution into the new key, right? Which actually takes us a tritone away from the key center we're in now. From C sharp to G is as far as you can get in terms of modulation. So let's congratulate these guys for getting us in and out of 2 keys that have no business being next to each other. C sharp minor going to a G mode mixtured minor. Following chorus 2, we're greeted with the same riff that we were greeted with after chorus 1, except we're playing it twice. And then we finally get to the interesting part, the instrumental break, the ultra chromatic spider exercise monsoon that we're about to get pummeled with. I wouldn't say that that's wimpy wimpy. I'd say that's hefty hefty. So the first part starts on the C sharp and we're doing a spider crawl up 2, 3, 4, 5. And then a pull off to 3, 2. Back down the 5, 4, 3, 2. So it's like a countdown. And then we do 5, 4, 3, 2 on the E and the B. So we go like this. When you're palm muting, be extra muty. And then when you're not muting, be extra not muty. You understand what I'm saying? Good. In between we go, which is the verse 1 riff, but only for a split second. And then we're greeted with this one, the tougher of the two. we're hammering and pulling from the 3rd and the 4th of the E, chromatic down the spider crawl, but then we have to get to the 4th fret here. And that's our pivot point to the next chromatic rundown. 3 notes on the E string, 4, 3, 2. So just remember that pattern, and then 3, 2, 3, 2, 1. So we're climbing down with a 3-note pattern this time. So 3, 2, 3. You might want to hit that brr at the end too. The next part is where things start to go completely haywire, or maybe the system is functioning far too well for our human ears to comprehend it fully. Instead of doing the power chord, we keep going. And we add more. Right, so let's check out what's going on in the later part of that, since we already saw the first 2 licks. Now we do this, 1, 2, 3, and then we have to switch positions. Pinky up to the 5th fret, ring on the 4th, 3, 2. Alright, so we're spider crawling it, but between 2 different strings. Then, once again, pinky, ring, middle pointer, slide, pinky, ring, middle, little jump, down, then we do this. Well, we almost have like a Lydian type of thing. Now, if you notice, I'm not really focusing too much on the harmonic value of this because it's just all loosely based in a C-sharp chromatic scale, right? There's no real tonal quality to this. It's just going crazy through all these different half-step runs, right? Let's continue our climb upwards. So here we're starting on the E string now instead. So we're going. So you got all that, just chromatic spider crawls up to the D string. So just count how many notes per string you're actually playing. So we're going 4, 4, 2, but in the opposite direction, all the way down, 4 in the opposite direction, and then 2 in the opposite direction. You see what I'm saying? Now after we hit that 6th fret, we go back into this. That's the exact same thing we played before, but up an octave from there, right? Alright, and then we come up with the same deal, but instead of doing the open string, we have to do a 1, 2, 3, 4, and then slide back into the position. This is all the same stuff from before. A little bit of a trick too, rhythmically, so that we don't get lost. When we hit this 2, 3, 4, 5, count the 3rd fret as being the downbeat. Feel it out as a downbeat instead of that first part. A 1, and then everything rips from there. Easy peasy. Now these parts right here, it's kind of like the release to the tension, but you're just adding more tension because it doesn't stop from there. Right? Now what I see this as is we're starting off with some chromaticism, but then we're doing this. As you notice, we're hitting the note G sharp here. So that's the last note before we break the chromatic pattern. So this looks like a Lydian type of motion, right? So we're actually hinting at the Lydian mode here. And then immediately up a half step from there. So we're hitting the Lydian mode, and then chromatically moving up a half step, and then doing the same thing up a whole step, right? And then working our way up into our new key center, which is now some type of F sharp. This next section is a continuous 16th note run with the guitars and the keyboards playing the main melody line. Now, the bass is what makes the function of this possible. So let's take a look at what the bass part is doing underneath this, and we'll talk about the chord structure. So the first chord that's being played is an F sharp, okay? That's what the bass is playing on the bottom, in a measure of 5/4 nonetheless. Now that F sharp can be seen at face value as being the 4 chord to the C sharp, because that was our original key center. However, what's being played on top of it trumps all of that. So we have an F sharp, which is most likely a 5 chord, or a type of 5 chord. And I'd say a Mixolydian or some sort of altered Mixolydian scale, but we'll get to that when we get into the top part. Alright, so we'll say this is sort of a 5 chord, going to an E in a measure of 6. Now this is a true 4 chord because the mode on top is the Lydian scale. So we're going from 5, 2, 3, 4 to 4, 5, 6, and then we slide up to a G. Right? Now that's another measure of 5, but also the same sort of deal, the Lydian mode, because we're hitting that C sharp in the melody line. So this is another type of 4 chord. We're just shifting the 4 chord into a new key. Alright, and then we hit up another one, but this time the bass is doing this. Now that's crazy. Which is also the Lydian mode as well. That's on a B flat. We're moving the 4 chord up a minor third. And outlining the sharp 4, which is the defining note of the Lydian mode, and the 6th, the major 6th. This is like hot cross buns from hell. And then we come down and we hit a G. Now this time we're implying that it's probably a G minor. G minor and a pentatonic type of thing. But we're doing the 5 and the 4 with the same rhythm. And this actually pokes out really nicely in the mix when you're listening to everything together. We move on and we come back to the F sharp. And that's just an F sharp minor pentatonic on top. So we can say that this is now the 4 chord. So we started with F sharp as the 5 chord, moved all the way through this sequence of moving 4 chords, and came back to F sharp as being a true minor 4 chord. So pretty incredible compositional dynamics going on here. And then of course, we're back into the C sharp. So let's get into what the guitar and the keyboard are doing on top of that bass line, right? The exciting part. So let's take this measure by measure, alright? So we have a measure of 5-4 on the start, where we're playing this almost like an altered F sharp Mixolydian scale, right? So we have all the notes of the Mixolydian scale except for the flat 2 and the sharp 4. So this is some kind of like Lydian dominant with a flat 2, but there's also a natural 2 as well. I'll show you. So we start off on G. Now check that out. We start off on G, but then we hit a G sharp on the top. So that's a flat 2 and a natural 2 happening within the same measure. So this can be seen as the flat 2 going to 1, the natural 6, that's all in the Mixolydian mode, flat 7, and then major third, 2, 1, flat 7. And the sharp 4 right at the end, just to give it that little extra Lydian tension. But it creates a very cool pattern that you're not really too sure what's going on here, right? It really does make you wonder whether or not you're indeed caught in a web. And that pattern goes twice within a measure of 5. If you play that exactly 2 times, you will hit exactly 5 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there you go. 16th notes all the way through. Here's my attempt to play that part with the F sharp on the bottom. Right? That sounds absolutely insane. Here, let me do it on the clean channel. Wow. This sounds like we're in a straight up alternate universe, a chaos vortex, if you will. Now, this is very interesting because it seems like almost like a split personality between what John Petrucci's been playing the whole time and what Kevin Moore's been playing the whole time. Kevin Moore has been staying away from the really dissonant notes, whereas Petrucci has been embracing them throughout the entire song. So I'm looking at this as the lower half as being Petrucci's mind, and the top half being Kevin Moore's mind, coming back into Petrucci's mind as we hit it again at the lower part, right? Because we have the flat 2, that's pretty dissonant, but then we're coming into straight up Mixolydian mode, which sounds nice. That sounds beautiful. But then we hit this. So this time, I don't know who's at fault, honestly. I'm thinking we can just blame Kevin Moore for all of our problems and everything will be set. The American political system can be fixed by blaming Kevin Moore. The next two parts, we're up at the 12th fret of the B string. Here we're doing this Lydian line. But we have to add that little 12, 11, 13, 11 at the end to give it that 6/4 feel. We're adding an extra beat. And this is, of course, the E Lydian mode. If we play it along with the E, very nice sounding, right? Sounds like a film score. And then we go up to the G Lydian. And that's a measure of 5, just like we started with, but here we have. So same exact sound, just moved up a minor third. So now we really get to hear the extremely fun part. This is the fast 16th note triplet section that we have at the end as sort of the climax of this instrumental break. So we have 16th note triplets going from the 17th of the B string up to 18 down, all the way down the scale like that. Now keep in mind we're in a B flat Lydian mode, starting on the sharp 4 coming down to the root. We do that twice, and then we do this. Now you can either pick it or you can do like a pull-off type of thing and then pick the 2 notes at the bottom, but it's at the 20th to the 15th and then 17, 15. So you do that twice. Next lick, we're up in here, the G minor position. So we're actually going from the 9th of the G minor, or the 2, 2, 3, 2, 1, flat 7, 5. We do that twice. And then we do the same type of thing with the pull-offs, just in that position instead, on those 2 strings. And then we cap it off with this. So that's just a series of F sharp minor pentatonic licks. The same 6 notes moving in 4 different octaves all the way down the guitar. Now because we have a 7 string, we can make it down all of those octaves. So let's check this out. We're going from the perfect 4th, or the 19th fret, 4, 5, 4, flat 3, 1, flat 7. And we do that same thing down the octaves. The same notes. In the same pattern too. And then we hit with a nice wide C sharp power chord down at the bottom, 2nd fret of the B string. We're ready to hit into the bridge, which is relatively self-explanatory. So let's check out the first part of the bridge with everything played together. So the first half of the bridge, the bass and the keyboard are doing the same thing, and John Petrucci is coming in with this little as a response to their call. So it's a call and response. The call is John Myung and Kevin Moore saying yo to John Petrucci, and John Petrucci saying what the hell's going on, man? Then on the second half of the bridge, we actually enter into more of the verse territory. So we actually wind up moving down to the B chord as well as the C sharp chord. Now here, Kevin Moore is reintroducing the counter melody from verse 3 and 4. Alright, so continuing on with that sort of idea. The final verse first section is very similar to the other parts. The only thing that changes is John Petrucci's guitar part, so I'll show you what that sounds like right here. So we're really just playing a half version of that other riff. Remember that? Just cut out the ninth, cut out all the melody notes going down, and just do this. And just repeat that over and over again until we hit the B, and we do the same thing. And then we finally go back to the original verse riff for the end. So it's a really interesting way to keep it the same, but also keep it different at the exact same time. What a conundrum. So after that fifth verse, we hit back into this riff again. Finally. Been long enough. And we do the same resolution into chorus number 3. Now chorus number 3 is exactly the same as it was before, however there's one slight difference which I'm going to play you right now. So this is the same stuff. Same thing. And then here, 3, 4, repeat. So we don't do that measure of 5, we don't do the boom, we just do a measure of 4 right back into a repeat of the chorus. So nice and easy right there. There's also a slight change in the acoustic guitar at the very end. So here's the second half of that. Right, we do the sus. We just hit those two notes, let them ring out through the measure of 4, and then we come back in for the final chorus, which sounds like this. This change, we're actually hitting like a B flat major 7 with a 6 as well. So we're doing sort of a jazzy hot cross buns this time. That's the only difference in the acoustic part. Then we come back around, do the same thing. Boom, boom, ba-dum, boom, woo. Just obviously we don't do it on the acoustic. Don't do that on the acoustic, whatever you do. Kevin Moore is going to come and find you, and you don't want that to happen. He's going to put mashed potatoes in your toilet. The most significant changes to the final chorus, chorus 4, are in the guitar part and the keyboard part. Now the guitar part comes up an octave and plays the same chords but as sus2 versions. So we're going like this. With the G, sus2, E flat, C, and that rhythm too. And then we're repeating, same thing, but this time we just do basic power chords all the way on the A string. Now the A string sounds really thin and dinky on a 7 string, doesn't it? That's because we're used to playing it down here. It sounds a lot heavier down there. But then again, according to Dave Mustaine, it doesn't. E standard is the heaviest tuning you need. And I kind of agree with him actually. The keyboard part just changes very slightly, and here is what it does. So we change up the melody very slightly. Major third, 4, 5, 1. Then we do this. We sort of anticipate the C minor by playing the A and the B flat, E flat, up there, and the same resolution down. Holds, holds, holds. And here's what it all sounds like together to wrap up this video once and for all. we have one more riff left, and this is it. So all that's happening, we're just taking the low version and playing it up the octave like this. Once again, just do the same deal. We're playing it twice. Hit that last 16th with a lot of fervor, a lot of vigor on that last 16th note. And on top of that, we have this little on the keyboards. Remember when I said that Kevin Moore's keyboarding in this song? Keyboarding. Sounds like we're doing some Mavis Beacon teaches typing here. But remember when I said that it sounds like a lot of the keyboard riffs were more guitar inspired? Well, this is a great example of that. He's just doing a pitch bend from B, the flat 7, up to the 1, the C sharp. Getting sort of like a motorcycle sound going, right? It sounds like we're on a motorcycle. I think Dream Theater was into motorcycles, sunglasses, and aviator helmets or something like that. Let's put both those parts together and let's enjoy the ending to the song. So I want to thank everybody for coming along and being caught in this web of torture by Kevin Moore, James Labrie, John Mayung, and John Petrucci, and Mike Portnoy as well. Please leave a like, comment on the video. You got to comment like 9 times on the video because these are still getting buried by the algorithm. If we want these view counts to go up, then the like counter and the comments have to go up. Everything's got to go up, all right? You can support the channel by going to www.subscribestar.com/RomanOva Music, where you can pledge as little as $1 per month. That's going to help out greatly. I'm telling you, any amount that I can get. You can donate via PayPal as well. I have a link to my tip jar down in the description. And you can just generally support it by liking, subscribing, commenting, and doing all that good stuff as well. But anyway, thanks for being caught in the web, and I'll see you on the next one. Let's see if you know what it is.